Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sher Vancouver's professional conduct and sexual harassment training. My name is Jagreet Dhadli, and I am Sher Vancouver's informal legal advisor. Alongside this role, though, I am also the marketing coordinator for the Sundar Prize Film Festival, as well as a graphic designer and in house marketer for Sher Vancouver. I used to be part of the management team as manager of fundraising. However, this role has been dissolved due to my educational leave to study Canadian and English law in the UK. Today, I will be presenting you with a video and presentation on professional conduct and sexual harassment. This training is for anyone and everyone who is a senior manager, board member, and volunteer at Share Vancouver. If you attend events or if you're involved in key decision making processes, or maybe you're a member who enjoys and utilizes Share Vancouver's many resources and projects, regardless of what that may be or may look like for you, this training is for you. It is important that we all understand the roles and responsibilities that fall under our own jurisdiction as a member of Share Vancouver. It is also important for us to know the roles and responsibilities of our peers, board members, and managers so we can hold ourselves and each other accountable while maintaining transparency on our roles and what they entail. Today, I will be walking you through the following content, as you can see here. I will be outlining each policy and breaking the legal jargon down for accessibility and our general understanding. I will also be presenting scenarios to you for you to consider for each policy we talk about. I do suggest you keep both policies open in tandem to watching this video. I think it will be of great help for you to read the policy alongside, before, or after going through this training video. Please note that in order to complete this training, you will need to complete a marked quiz at the end of this video. Doing both is mandatory, and we do expect you to get a 7 out of 10 at least to pass. Failing to do so means you will not be able to renew your membership at Share Vancouver. Now, I know this sounds intense, but don't be scared. We will be walking through the training together. The training is pretty straightforward and you'll understand everything by the end of the video. The quiz also directly relates to the training, and you're more than welcome to go back to the video for reference to complete your quiz. You're also welcome to ask us any questions if you have any before answering on the quiz. And you know what? If you don't pass the first time, it's okay. Let us know and we'll arrange it in a way where you can take it a second time. So to start, we're going to go over the objectives of today's training. But before I do that, I wanted to quickly just give you an overview of what we'll learn in this workshop if you haven't read the slide already. So first, we're going to go over the objective and policy overview. Then we're going to define professional conduct and have examples of scenarios of professional conduct. What is professional conduct and what isn't? We're also going to then define sexual harassment and include scenarios of what that looks like. Finally, we're going to go into our conflict resolution and written complaint procedure, where we're going to show you in depth of how that looks like and how that would affect you when you're trying to look towards writing a complaint or have some type of conflict resolution within Share Vancouver. So, simply put, the goal of this video is to clarify how we will manage a personal and sexual relationship among board members and senior managers as a nonprofit organization. So, this policy of professional conduct sets standards and expectations for senior leadership, especially board members and senior managers at Share Vancouver. It aims to establish guidelines for professional conduct and ethical behavior, and it emphasizes that all actions taken by board members and senior managers can and will impact Share's reputation and is intended to maintain a professional, safe, and ethical working environment. By reading these objectives, you are now seeing what we are committed to do for you, what we are committed to do for the organization within these roles that we have chosen, either as board members and senior managers. In the same light, it goes both ways. We still hold members and volunteers to certain standards of profession to maintain professionalism and to have safe and ethical working environments and experiences at Share. However, the onus does lie a little bit more on board members and senior managers because we take on an operational role and a leadership role within the organization. So, what is professional conduct? Professional conduct expectations for board members in a nonprofit society generally revolve around maintaining high ethical and professional standards in their roles. So, the following concepts can apply to professional conduct and professional behavior to help you understand what that looks like in a nonprofit setting. So fiduciary responsibility, which means, financial responsibility, legal compliance, so that includes understanding things like the law and legal matters and clauses relating to nonprofit societies and the operation of nonprofit societies, a duty of care. This one's really important. Board members and senior management have a duty of care that we owe to members of the society and volunteers. As a result, that duty of care, primarily in and of itself, is a huge proponent to professional conduct. When we're taking on these leadership positions, we are taking an oath that we are going to take care of our members and do what we can in our leadership role to ensure that we are being professional, fair, and ethical. Now, that goes back to my third point now of professionalism. This includes things like communication, accountability, and of course, confidentiality. The next thing is diversity and inclusivity, which is, of course, being tolerant of all types of people that walk through Sher Vancouver, whether or not they are queer, whether they are choosing to stay closeted, whether they're an ally. Either which way, we must commit ourselves to diversity and inclusivity in order to be truly a part of our leadership role that we are taking on, and in order to maintain a healthy ecosystem within the nonprofit. Under diversity and inclusivity comes conflict resolution, something which is really, really important for us to be able to do to maintain our relationships and nurture the bonds that we share within Share Vancouver. Board members should maintain a professional and respectful demeanor in all interactions related to the organization, including relationships with staff, volunteers, donors, and the community. So, why is professional conduct important? For one, it allows for a zero tolerance policy for sexual harassment. That includes encompassing all forms of unwelcome behavior of sexual nature within or related to Share Vancouver. Now, we're going to go into sexual harassment a little bit more um, in a couple of slides, but for now, we're going to park it where it is and we're going to move forward. Another reason why professional conduct is important is because board members and senior managers are expected to act with highest ethical standards and promote honesty, integrity, and fairness within all their actions and decisions. When you have a higher role in the organization where you have a little bit more power, decision making power, the ability to represent Share Vancouver and create key decisions and interactions, be part of interactions that really shape what the organization is all about and what it offers. The onus and burden is on you to maintain honest and ethical conduct. The next thing is respect and inclusivity. Decision makers must treat all individuals associated with Share with respect, dignity, and inclusivity. This policy strictly prohibits behavior such as harassment, gossip, bullying tactics, or exclusionary practices that create a divisive or toxic environment. I think that one's pretty straightforward. At the end of the day, it's important for us to respect each other and make sure that we are inclusive. If we are if we are exhibiting behaviors that promote bullying tactics or harass people or creates gossip and excludes people, we're not doing our job as leaders nor as members of taking care of each other and nurturing these bonds that we have created and are creating and continue to create at Share Vancouver. Another thing is avoidance of conflicts of interest. Board members and senior managers are required to identify and address conflicts of interest that may arise due to their position within Share in order to prioritize the best interests of our organization. Now, this includes things like personal relationships, which is what we'll get to. But really what it comes down to, rather, is that if you feel there's a conflict of interest in your role within Share or outside of Share, it's best to take a step back to reflect on that and see how ethical your behavior is and who it's affecting. If it's going to be negatively affecting a member or volunteer or a whole body of people at Sher Vancouver, it's important to take a step back and think about those actions and see how they would affect others. Reasonable foreseeability is something that we all have. And reasonable foreseeability is something that allows us as human beings to really navigate and judge our day to day and really create the best decisions possible for ourselves. That being said, reasonable foreseeability is also important in situations of conflict of interest because it needs to give us a chance to be able to think about what we are doing and who it's affecting. Now, that directly relates to the last point here of accountability. Decision makers at Share Vancouver, namely board members and senior management, are held accountable for their actions and decisions. We are expected to be open to feedback and willing to rectify any actions found in violation of this policy. If we are not open to correcting our mistakes, it's going to be really hard for us to really move forward in any which way when it comes to relationship building or really growing as people. Especially in leadership positions, we must take accountability. In terms of board members and senior management, here are some specific parts of the policy for us to consider. Now, if you are a member and a volunteer with Share Vancouver, this is still important for you to know, and I do encourage you to really stick through this part of the training, because if you ever wanted to apply to be a board member or a senior manager, these are some things that you'd have to consider. In the same light, I want to make it really transparent for you that this is exactly the standard of conduct that we expect from our senior management and our board members. So with fiduciary responsibility, board members and senior management are expected to act in the best financial interests of the organization. This includes avoiding conflict of interest and disclosing any potential conflicts when they arise. Board members are onboarded on a voluntary basis, meaning if you're a board member, your role is not a paid opportunity, but rather a volunteer role as outlined in BC legislature. Meanwhile, being a senior manager is not a volunteer role. It is a paid opportunity that has its own contract, its own set pay, its own set pay dates, and all else that would be normal in any type of employment role, especially the contract level of employment role. The next thing that's really important to consider is legal compliance. Board members need to ensure that the organization complies with all relevant laws and regulations, including tax laws, reporting requirements, especially with grants, and any specific laws governing nonprofit organizations in their jurisdiction. It is very, very, very important and critical for board members to understand what legal compliance is in a nonprofit setting. If you are a board member and you don't know what that's about, we highly, highly suggest, when I say that, I mean we are giving you mandatory reading to be able to understand fully what the legal compliance is for board members and be learned in that. We are linking some mandatory reading for board members here. You can probably find it in the description of the video. If not, you'll find it in the copy of the slides and in any emails that Alex may send out. The first one is the Canada Nonprofit Corporations Act. This is full legislature created by the federal government of Canada for nonprofits to outline everything relating to operations, including conduct, financials, legal compliance, operations, and all else that would fall under the federal jurisdiction of a nonprofit corporation. A nonprofit corporation is exactly that. It's a corporation. It's like any other business, but it has its own restrictions, including the fact that it's not a for profit business. A nonprofit is non for profit. As a result, it has its own unique legislature that is starkly different from companies. However, it is no different in the sense where a nonprofit is incorporated just like a company is. As a result, there are strict legal rules that must be considered, and board members and senior management must understand in order to even be part of a nonprofit. The second thing is the CRA charities and giving guidelines. Now, this is something that you can go through to see what exactly can constitute as a funding, fundraising event or an expense at Share Vancouver or any nonprofit. Next is Share Vancouver's mission and vision. We highly, highly, highly suggest that you learn Share Vancouver's mission and vision so you can understand the unique demographic that we serve. Now, if you are not a board member or senior management and you still want to read these legislative acts, we highly encourage you to do so. At the end of the day, when you're learning about these things, you are actually equipping yourself with knowledge. And as a result, it'll help you be more learned in the decision making that you'd like to make, and also hold yourself and your peers accountable at Share Vancouver or any other nonprofit that you're a part of, to be able to ensure that the environment that is being created is safe, but also that the nonprofit is acting according to the rules that it should be operating under. We're going to go through a scenario now of what exactly professional conduct is. So let's go through it. At a community event, a Share Vancouver board member, John, as you know, this is a fake scenario. Just giving a disclaimer here. So, at a community event, a Share Vancouver board member, John, represented the organization by attending. He consumed excessive alcohol, becoming visibly drunk and engaging in inappropriate behavior. This included slurred speech, stumbling, and offensive comments to another Share Vancouver member about people who are queer and choose not to attend SOGI protests. Now, these comments are made in front of a third party who is not a part of Share Vancouver, but rather a queer identifying guest of the event who is from out of town. As you can see, John's actions here reflected poorly on Share Vancouver and emphasized the need for professionalism and responsible conduct during public appearances. As you can see, in the scenario, we can unpack the fact that even though John isn't at a Share Vancouver event, as a board member, he is representing Share Vancouver by attending this event. As a result, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day what he intended to do and what he didn't intend to do. It's important to remember that when you are representing Share Vancouver at an event, you go in with your best behavior. Failure to do so severely, severely harms the public image of Share Vancouver. You are doing the opposite then of what you intend as a board member. Let's unpack another scenario. A board member of a nonprofit organization, Sarah, was attending a regular project meetup. During the meeting, Sarah consistently interrupted and belittled a fellow member when they presented their ideas and suggestions. She dismissed their contributions with condescending remarks, making it clear that she did not value their input. This behavior created a hostile and unproductive meeting atmosphere, making it difficult for other board members to engage in meaningful discussions. Sarah's unprofessional conduct not only undermined the collaborative spirit of the organization's membership, but also left other members and volunteers feeling disrespected and demotivated. As you can see, this scenario highlights the importance of maintaining a respectful and inclusive environment within the organization, which adheres to professional conduct standards. At the end of the day, professional conduct isn't something that we use to restrict fun, not at all. It's just something to consider if you want to create longevity in your relationships within Share Vancouver. It's not just something that's important for board members and senior managers, but it's important for everybody who attends Share Vancouver programs and projects or attends public events representing Share Vancouver. Now, let's look at sexual harassment and personal relationships. We've completed the first part of the policy, and now we're going to go through the next one. Everyone at Share Vancouver has a role in preventing sexual harassment and is responsible in compliance with this provision of the policy. Let's look at what sexual harassment really is. Sexual harassment is a form of unwelcome and inappropriate behavior of a sexual nature that creates a hostile, intimidating, or offensive environment for individuals. Sexual harassment can encompass various verbal, nonverbal, or physical actions that are sexually explicit or offensive. Sexual harassment includes actions such as unwelcome advances, requests for sexual favors, lewd comments, unwanted physical contact, and any other behavior that makes individuals feel uncomfortable or threatened due to their sex or gender. At the end of the day, sexual harassment is something that makes people not feel safe and not feel comfortable. If you're doing something that is probably going against how you would like to be felt, for example, if you don't like to be touched by people in certain places of your body, but you're doing it, regardless of whether you drank or not, that's irrespective to the discussion, that probably constitutes a sexual harassment, especially if it's done without consent of the other person. We encourage professional boundaries with volunteers, members, management, and board members. Professional boundaries applies to interactions within Share and any events or activities sponsored or supported by Share. Share prohibits all forms of sexual harassment. Sexual harassment is not limited to verbal, physical, visual, or online behaviors, and any such conduct, whether explicit or implied, will not be tolerated. Let's unpack the personal relationship policy. Now, sexual harassment was pretty straightforward when it came up to it. Now, here's the thing that's important for you to know when it comes to personal relationships. We do not expect everybody to disclose personal relationships within Share Vancouver. That's extremely problematic, especially the fact that we respect that a lot of folks choose to stay closeted outside of Share Vancouver, which is totally acceptable. And, why wouldn't that be? However, we do have an onus on board members and senior managers who must disclose personal or sexual relationships within the organization. Not only must they notify the other party and come to an agreement that, yes, we are going to disclose our relationship, but this will also ensure that we maintain strict confidentiality unless consent is given. All to say that if you're a senior manager and a board member who has a relationship with somebody in the organization, not only must you both consent to sharing that relationship and disclosing that to the board or senior management, but we will do what we can and everything in our power to maintain that strict confidentiality unless you'd like to disclose your relationship yourself within the organization. Otherwise, that is not our thing to disclose unless there is a criminal or legal investigation in which we are compelled to disclose that relationship. Now, if a personal or sexual relationship exists between a board member or a senior manager and another individual within the organization, they must recuse themselves or excuse themselves from relevant discussions and decisions unless directed otherwise by the board. And this excludes those directly involved. So, say you're a board member who is involved in a relationship with somebody in the organization. At the end of the day, other board members, your fellow peer board members, um, can recuse you from discussions and decisions pertaining to the organization if we feel there is some type of bias. Um, Usually, in situations like this, it's very uncommon for stuff like that to happen. However, we do not want to miss anything in our scope. And as a result, we have a policy in place where if you are a board member or a senior manager who is in a relationship with somebody else at the organization, it is of paramount importance for us to ensure that we are being as unbiased as possible in our decision making. And if there's something that, like a relationship or a personal relationship, that gets in the way, it's really important to be able to have a board member step back if their internal biases are getting in the way. Professional conduct and boundaries are super important. So, upon disclosure of the relationship, the boards decide on a case by case basis, which honestly may involve no action or change in reporting structure. In serious cases, board members may be encouraged to reconsider the relationship or resign with an expectation of upholding professional conduct and ensuring relationships do not interfere with their Share Vancouver responsibilities. Now, it's very, very hard sometimes when you mix professional and personal. As a result, on a case by case basis, again, this is not there's no strict action that would happen in a uniform way. This is on a case by case basis that upon disclosing a relationship, if there is a hefty consideration that there is some type of bias or there is personal and professional getting mixed here, then we do have the right to ask a board member to step down or reconsider the relationship in the interest of the organization. Let's unpack sexual harassment in a scenario. Is this sexual harassment? Sophia is a dedicated volunteer at a local nonprofit organization focused on youth development. She has been involved in various programs and has formed close relationships with fellow volunteers and staff. During one day, during a team meeting, the organization's executive director, Shankar, makes a series of inappropriate comments to Sophia, including suggestive remarks about her appearance and clothing. Over the next few weeks, Shankar's behavior escalates. He starts sending Sophia unsolicited text messages with explicit content and innuendos, creating a hostile and uncomfortable environment for her. Sophia, now feeling trapped and unsure how to address the situation, becomes increasingly distressed. She decides to keep quiet to avoid jeopardizing her involvement with the organization, which she is greatly passionate about. This scenario illustrates a case of sexual harassment within a nonprofit organization where a person in a position of authority engages in inappropriate behavior that creates a hostile and uncomfortable environment for a volunteer. So, as you can see, this scenario is definitely sexual harassment. And that's something we definitely want to avoid at Share Vancouver. Now, let's unpack personal relationships. Does this personal relationship need to be disclosed to a leadership team? Ask yourself this while we go through this scenario. Emily is a senior manager at Share Vancouver, and she has developed a close working relationship with James, another senior manager. Over time, their professional collaboration has grown into a personal relationship, and they have decided to disclose it in compliance with the organization's policy. Emily approaches James to discuss their obligation to disclose their personal relationship to the board. During a private conversation, Emily explains the policy to James, emphasizing the importance of maintaining transparency and avoiding any potential conflicts of interest. James agrees, understanding the significance of the disclosure. Both Emily and James decide to inform the board about their relationship during the next board meeting. They do so promptly, and the board members acknowledge the disclosure and commit to keeping the information confidential as per the policy's requirements. In this scenario, Emily and James follow the organization's policy by promptly disclosing their personal relationship to the board. They also communicate and explain that they were in obligation to each other and maintain strict confidentiality within the organization, ensuring transparency and compliance with the policy. Now, note in this scenario and within the personal relationship policy, just going through this to make sure that we understand it 100%, the board is under the burden of keeping this information confidential as per the policy's requirements. Now, if Emily and James would like to publicly disclose their relationship within the organization, they are more than welcome to do so, but it can't be the board or senior management disclosing that for them against their permission. That's not cool, that won't fly, and that is against the personal relationships policy. And now, with that, we are going to be going over our conflict resolution and written complaint procedure. So, individuals who wish to file a complaint under this policy are to be expected to follow SHARE's complaint resolution process. Let's go through the following steps. Now, as you know, conflict resolution is something that is very, very important. Without conflict resolution, we wouldn't be able to really, one, argue healthily, and two, come to a resolution after an argument. Now, sometimes conflicts can't be resolved, or the situation could be too heated, or it could be something that, one party doesn't really consent to. As a result, we have a written complaint procedure so that way we can ensure that whatever complaints are going through at Share, we are taking a look at them and we're taking them quite seriously. Now, let's go through the steps. Step one, speak directly to the person involved to try and address the issue and try to informally resolve the issue to the satisfaction of all parties. Basically, you're going to try and speak to the person involved to figure out the issue and fix it. And if you can't fix it in a way that both parties are satisfied, let's go to step two. If step one doesn't resolve the issue or step one is not appropriate, which, as we outlined before, examples of why it may not be appropriate, you can bring the issue on a confidential basis to a share manager or to the share founder, Alex Sangha, to try to facilitate a resolution. If there is a manager that you have a relationship with or that you trust, and when I say relationship, I mean friendship, to specify, or you've spoken to them a few times or you're more familiar with them, you are more than welcome to go to that senior manager or to that board member with your complaint. We do encourage you to come to Alex, of course, but not all people know Alex on a day to day basis because often Alex is working on the back end to really keep the legacy of Sher Vancouver going. We understand that there's more face to face interaction with other board members and specifically senior management. As a result, we don't want you to hold you back from making that decision for yourself. If you find that you would like to go to a different board member or senior manager with your complaint, you are more than welcome to do so. Step three. If step one or two does not resolve the issue, you can bring the issue to the board for its consideration. The board will consider whether Share Vancouver should investigate the matter further or if Share Vancouver has a duty to report it and refer the matter externally for investigation. If that's the case, the onus will be on Sher Vancouver to report it with your consent. Step four, the person bringing the complaint and any accused parties must participate and cooperate in any investigation conducted. So both parties must be cooperative during the complaint process. This is in the interest of protecting both parties and to ensure that this process goes smoothly. And step five, the person bringing the complaint and the accused will be notified of the outcome of the investigation if there is one, and any corrective action that is taken if there is any action taken. Please note here that Share will maintain confidentiality over any investigation that is consistent with the needs of the investigation and may include disclosure to the board or legal counsel. Confidential information will only be disclosed for the purpose of the investigation as required to take corrective action or required by law. Now, the only time your information of this conflict resolution procedure or the written complaint procedure will, be shared outside of the board member that you choose or the senior manager that you choose to take on your complaint is if we require legal counsel. In that case, yes, it is possible it could be shared with me or Share Vancouver's formal lawyer or Alex Sangha. In that case, you will be notified and we will take your consent to see if we can take corrective action. But there are instances where, God forbid, action needs to be taken as required by law. So there may need to be a lawsuit or there may need to be a criminal investigation. As a result, the duty is on Share Vancouver to legally report that. Something to consider about the policy violations and procedure of policy violations. Basically, if you break this policy, you face consequences, including losing your job or any other connection you have with Share Vancouver. We take policy violations very, very, very seriously. Sexual harassment, professional conduct, and personal relationships are things that hold a lot of emotion, trauma, and other complicated things attached to them. As a result, it is our job as a nonprofit to take this stuff super seriously. In the same light, we have this written complaint process in place so that way people can feel comfortable coming to the board and senior managers to be able to solve their problems in a way that is impartial and safe. So, we don't want anybody to abuse this policy. And as a result, we have a procedure in place for that as well. People who report issues honestly and participate in an investigation will never face punishment. But anybody who makes a false or malicious complaint, takes revenge on someone for filing a complaint, or obstructs an investigation may be disciplined, including losing their job or working relationships and formal connections with Sher Vancouver. Now, think about this when you do the quiz. I'm giving you a hint here. We take this stuff very seriously. So it's not a matter of paid leave or a warning. If you're doing something that requires a response that is just as balanced, that will include your immediate termination with the organization. This is something that we have to have out here because we work with at risk people. And we have standards set in place now that everybody is going to do training for, is fully understanding of. And as a result, there is no excuse for things like making a false or malicious complaint, sexual harassment, unprofessional conduct, and taking revenge on someone for filing a complaint. These behaviors are toxic and they are not going to be tolerated. But in the same light, these these policies have been set in place for accountability and transparency so we can nurture the relationships that we have in Sher Vancouver in a way that is unbiased, in a way that's safe, and allows for everybody to feel welcome. That is our main goal at Sher Vancouver, to make everybody feel welcome and safe. It goes back to our mission and our vision. And we want nothing more and nothing less than for people to feel comfortable at Share Vancouver and be able to live a life of dignity within and outside of the organization. And that's all. You have been such a rock star going through this training with us. We thank you very much for doing so. If you have any questions or concerns, you can always reach out to us. Now, as you know, I am Jagreet and I am helping with facilitating this training. However, all questions or concerns will be first and foremost directed to Alex Sunga. And if there is legal counsel required, I can always step in. However, you can email Alex at info@sharevancouver.com. You can find us on social media at Share Vancouver, Instagram, and everywhere else. And you can call Alex directly at that number or text him if you have any questions or concerns. Thank you so much for your time for this training. And we look forward to your quiz responses. And if you have any questions or comments before you do the quiz, please feel free to send them our way. We would be more than happy to clarify anything before you take it. Either which way, if there's still something that doesn't make sense to you, reach out and we will clarify what you need clarified to ensure that you have a full understanding of what these policies entail, why they're relevant, why they've been put in place, and how they help our organization thrive. Thank you so much for your time and have a wonderful day.